number 7 is you talk about how you blend neuroscience and nature in the book. Can you give us more details? This is probably one of my biggest missions, if you will, when I was writing the book. As a gerontologist, I study a lot about psychology and mental health and emotional health, but I also study a lot about brain health and how the brain functions. To me, it's fascinating. I am fascinated by neuroscience because it's really kind of one of our last frontiers that we haven't fully explored. We're still learning so much about how our brains work. And one of the topics, by the way, in the book that I think you'll find really interesting is about neuroplasticity and brain exercises, things that you can do to really strengthen and build new neurons. Because now we know, and this is only over the last 20 years, we actually know that we can create new neurons in our brains. So we thought, decades ago that we were born with a certain amount of brain cells and that's it. And if you lose those brain cells, that's it. You don't get to build them back. And now we know that's not true. We can build our neurons back. So that's really important. But getting back to the question, so what I was studying and the research I was doing, and particularly going back to 2 to 3 million years ago when our brains are really developing. So I talk in the book a little bit about the ancient brain, which is that 2 to 3 million old brain, versus the new brain. And so the ancient brain is the one, and I have some illustrations in the book, by the way, but I talk about how that's really tied to our survival instincts and our stress responses. And it's based on ancient things that we saw, smelled, touched, heard. It's multisensory. And so our ancient brain really focuses on those five senses in terms of survival. And this is where we learn about the fight or flight response. And so there's a new theory now that I write about in the book that's called Tend and Befriend, which typically happens a little bit more with women in a stress response. You'll read all about that. But what was fascinating to me is how much of our ancient brains are still really controlling a lot of the things that we feel. So when you think about anxiety, and you think about depression, and you just think about overall sense of stress and feeling overwhelmed, it's because our brains are not able to assess all of this information in the way that we were used to, and we go back to kind of that ancient brain. And so I talk a lot throughout the book about bringing nature back into your life. The balance of having technology has to be balanced with nature. So whether it's getting outside, whether it's having a beautiful view of outside, even things that are in color psychology. So for instance, the colors are so important to me. It's why I use that as one of the motifs in the seven elements. I use the seven different colors, not exactly of the rainbow. I chose my own colors. But color psychology and chromotherapy is something that's really on the rise right now. And if you think about it, things like radiation and ultraviolet lights and red light therapy, all of those things are based on chromotherapy, which is ancient, by the way. And that's the other thing that fascinated me is so much of this research I was doing showed us that the ancient practices are still here. We just call them something new. But again, going back to how the brain works, we really calm ourselves. For instance, when you want to get into sleep and stay in good sleep, pink noise. So, pink, there's your color, right? It's a sonic hue. We know that all of these sounds have colors associated with them. Pink noise is your best choice. Now, people know about white noise. And I'm seeing commercials now about green noise, which is very similar to pink, but still slightly different. So I explain in the book why pink noise is the best. It's because it represents nature sounds, okay? And that will get you into sleep faster and keep you in sleep longer. So you get all of those great cycles of sleep. Another one is, for instance, we think about new diets and the newest, diet fad. What should we do? Well, something very simple is just eat the rainbow every day. And so I have, all of the different colors of foods and what their benefits are in terms of the micronutrients that we need. And I also interview a great expert about how our microbiome affects our brain health and our brain function, and how so much of the things that we see with brain health, whether it has to do with ADHD, autism, Alzheimer's, all of those things could really be addressed through a better nutritional and particularly micronutrient type diet. But if you eat the rainbow every day, which is fun, right? That's not counting calories. That's not, having to abide by, some kind of plan or whatever. It's just, have I eaten all the colors today? Oops, I didn't get purple because that's a really rare food, right? Let me see if I can get some grapes or something that would be good. So it's kind of becomes a little bit more fun. And I think, again, what I want to do is I want to help you have healthier practices, help you have better well being that I know affects your brain health. But how do we use fun and how do we use nature to get there? And that's just another example of it. So, I think what's really important is the book is really dedicated to understanding brain health. I do a lot of information for you about how your brain works, how it responds to different stimuli, how we need to work out different regions of the brain because we want to keep that brain really healthy. And it's the same as working out your body. You have to work out different regions of the brain. How do you do that? And, how do we reduce our stress and oxidative stress, which leads to inflammation, which leads to chronic illness. And, those are all the things that we see that are so detrimental to our society today. So I'm a neuroscience nerd. And I also love nature. I love the teachings of nature, and they're simple. What I love is you don't have to go out and buy anything. Nature is there for you. We just have to seek it. So if we can bring those two things together, that was really my mission in writing the book, and those are the main themes of the book. And as I mentioned, being in an area like maybe near something like the beautiful John Muir Woods, that's just an extra bonus for people who can get to something like a forest bathing experience, or at least walking in a park, or walking down a tree lined street, or whatever it is, or even in your own garden. If you can create your own garden, maybe in your windowsill, have a small little herb garden. Those types of things really help us out. It's amazing what it can do to help calm yourself, calm your brain, calm that stress response. So neuroscience and nature, those are the two things that I'm blending in the Me Time Monday book.